In 2009, Congress gave the FDA authority to regulate the marketing of tobacco products. Since then, the adult smoking rate has dropped from more than 20% to less than 13%. Many of those changes were guided by Mitchell Zeller, former director of the Center for Tobacco Products at the FDA. He's also a finalist for a Service to America medal. Mitch, welcome to the program.
Great to be with you.
You started with the FDA back in 1993. What was the tobacco industry like at the time, and what were the biggest challenges back then?
Back in 1993, the tobacco industry was, I would say, more politically influential than they are now. And one of the biggest challenges that we had was the Clinton administration willing to take on the political battles of FDA making a decision to finally regulate the tobacco industry. And so we had to persuade the administration back then that we had a strong case to regulate, and then we had to be with them to deal with whatever the political fallout was going to be.
And you weren't able to really regulate the industry, and you left, but then you came back in 2013.
Well, actually, we did assert jurisdiction and began to regulate them in 1997, but the industry sued, and then they ultimately prevailed in the Supreme Court, which then shut everything down in 2000, yes.
So in 2013, you came back to the FDA. You were leading the Center for Tobacco Products, which was pretty new at the time. Why was the center created? What was the mission?
So in the historically unregulated marketplace, especially now for cigarettes, it was the cigarette companies, the product developers, the marketers. They decided which products came to market. They decided what kind of changes were made to products. And we're talking about a product that will kill half of its customers long-term prematurely later in life because of how toxic and dangerous cigarettes are. So the biggest change is that the Center for Tobacco Products became sort of like the gatekeeper. And in the same way that the public has an expectation of FDA when it comes to the regulation of foods or drugs or medical devices, that the agency stands between the regulated industry and the consumer, we assumed that responsibility to try to reduce the harms associated with ongoing tobacco use.
So it was under your guidance that the FDA announced rules to prohibit menthol in cigarettes and also all flavors in cigars. So what prompted that? What was the goal?
That was a long-term effort. You said I came back in 2013. Well, one of the things that I was told in the Obama administration that I could start working on in 2013 was taking menthol out of cigarettes. And let's just say it never happened.
But so, why? What's the importance of that?
I think that there was a concern inside the Obama administration that it was too politically risky. I mean, we'll never know. No one ever said that in such stark black and white terms to me. All I know is that we never got the support that we needed to move forward with taking menthol out of cigarettes. The Biden administration supported both taking menthol out of cigarettes and all flavors out of mass-produced cigars, and I was very happy to see that announced finally in April.
And why? What would that do? Is it because it makes it more appealing to younger people?
The menthol in cigarettes masks the harshness of the nicotine and the other aversive parts of smoking cigarettes. When I was a teenager, I went into the woods in camp and tried to smoke a Marlboro, and then went back the next day and tried again, and then stopped because it was kind of gross and I was coughing. Well, the menthol, think about, menthol cough drops. There's this cooling effect. And so the menthol literally just helps it easier for the poison to go down, and also being very attractive to kids. And who is the remaining smoker today, and who uses these mass-produced cigars, little cigars and cigarillos? It's Black Americans, it's Hispanic Americans, it's the current smoker has been left behind really with all the progress that we've made at a population level in reducing overall consumption and prevalence of cigarettes. Taking the flavors out will go a long way to helping those that continue to smoke.
So what's the key, do you think, to preventing kids from starting to smoke?
It starts with education, and so FDA has made a massive investment in a public education campaign. Also, what we call denormalization. I grew up in a household where both my parents smoked. It's statistically proven that if you grow up in a household where at least one person is smoking, you are much more likely to smoke than if you grow up in a house where no one smokes. So denormalizing tobacco use, which has taken 40 or 50 years, has also been successful in reducing overall cigarette consumption. But we have some issues today when it comes to kids, because it's a little known fact that each day more kids experiment with cigars than with cigarettes. So tremendous progress with cigarettes, a lot of work to do with cigars, and the single most popular tobacco product with kids is, of course, e-cigarettes.
That's what I wanted to ask you about next, e-cigarettes and vaping. Where do we stand with that?
We're at an interesting point where the rates seem to be going down, so that's the good news. The bad news is this remains by far the most popular category of tobacco products with kids. And unlike with cigarettes, kids know that cigarettes are dangerous. They may not know all of the harms associated with cigarettes, but no kid is walking around thinking that cigarettes are safe or less harmful than other tobacco products. By contrast, too many kids are walking around thinking that e-cigarettes are simply water vapor. They're not. An e-cigarette could help an addicted adult cigarette smoker use a less harmful product. But e-cigarettes contain nicotine. Nicotine can be addictive, and no kid should be inhaling nicotine and these other compounds into their lungs.
You know, we're seeing now a historically low rate of smoking in the United States. Is this about as low as it's going to go? I mean, we're never going to get to zero.
We're never going to get to zero, but we still have more than 30 million Americans who smoke. And that's just an unacceptable number. So yes, the population level numbers are historically low, but we have a lot more work to do. We're still talking about the leading cause of completely preventable disease and death in the country and in the world.
30 seconds. What's going to be the biggest challenge going forward in regulating big tobacco?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be, can the Biden administration deliver on reducing the allowable levels of nicotine in combustible tobacco products? When I was center director, we published some population level modeling which showed that one policy could avert millions of deaths projected out through the end of the century. The Biden administration has announced its commitment to this. I think one of the biggest challenges will be for that rulemaking to be completed. If it is, it'll be one of the greatest interventions in the history of public health.
Mitch, thank you so much, and thank you for your work on this subject.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.